just like taking the talking points of the players and you know, having
Sue Bird just straight up said what everyone's been thinking. Like, she called out WNBA players for promoting other leagues because, well, they're getting paid. But get this, she didn't hold back. She even went after the rival leagues directly. It's like she's admitting there's a huge conflict of interest, especially with the WNBA trying to negotiate this massive CBA. And get this, it's not just a rumor, it's Sue Bird saying player loyalty is basically about the money. Then you've got Jewel Lloyd signing with Project B, and Nneka Ogwumike, the actual president of the Players Association, signing too. So yeah, what does loyalty even mean anymore? Especially when the same people who are supposed to be negotiating for the WNBA are also building up the competition.
Well, that reflects that. We can highlight very quickly and easily is whatever is paying you the most is what you're going to talk nice about.
Whatever's paying them the most is what they're...
Listen to that reaction again. Sue Bird knows this is messy. You can see it on her face. She's trying to be cool, not throw anyone under the bus. But she can't hide what she's really thinking. When they ask about the CBA negotiations, that headshake, that's concern, not confidence. The thing is, the WNBA's current deal expires after 20. So right now, the Players Association should be laser focused on getting the best deal possible. Viewership is through the roof, thanks to Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Sponsors are paying attention. Networks are fighting for the rights. This is the moment to strike. But instead, you have 3 of the Players Association's 4 VPs involved in Unrivaled. Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier are co-founders. Kelsey Plum's involved, and Nneka Ogwumike, the union president, just signed with Project B. Think about it. The people supposed to be fighting for better WNBA contracts are building a rival league.
Obviously is involved in it. She's the president of the WNBPA. I always have to say that slow. 3 of its vice presidents, Stewie, Fee, Kelsey Plum, are all involved in Unrivaled. Obviously, Fee and Stewie, you know, the co-founders in these rival leagues. What does that mean for the path forward?
The founders, hold on, you gotta hear.
Rival leagues, she said it. Not complimentary or off-season opportunities. Rival leagues, that's the most honest anyone's been. And here's why it matters. Rivalry in sports means competing for resources. Attention, players, media, and sponsorship dollars. You can't serve 2 masters when they're fighting for the same money. Sue Bird's trying to soften it, saying a healthy WNBA benefits everyone. But does anyone really think Unrivaled and Project B want the WNBA to pay players so much they don't need other leagues? Nah, that's not how business works. These leagues exist because WNBA salaries were low. If those salaries jumped to $500K instead of $120K, would Unrivaled even be necessary? Would Project B have the same appeal? It's obvious. If you co-founded Unrivaled, you need the WNBA to stay limited. You need that gap to exist, so players feel like they're not getting enough from the WNBA and commit to your league. It's not a conspiracy, it's basic economics.
Founders of, she said it, rival leagues. Rival. They are the co-founders of rival leagues, but they are on the board for the WNBPA. Can I get a conflict of interest for 100? Going for 100. Sold. Conflict of interest, man.
Stewie, Fee, Kelsey Plum are all involved in Unrivaled. Obviously, Fee and Stewie, you know, the co-founders in these rival leagues.
Now, she's talking about the WNBA's non-salary benefits. This is where it gets interesting. She's right. Playing in America matters. Endorsements often require WNBA participation. Playing against the best, in front of American audiences, builds your brand. That's all true, but listen to what she's not saying. She's not saying WNBA salaries are fair. She's not saying players shouldn't look elsewhere. She's saying the WNBA is valuable despite its salary limitations. That's different than saying the WNBA pays players what they deserve. See, Sue Bird played in Russia for years, made more money than she ever did in the WNBA. She's not against players getting paid, But she's saying something else. These players who position themselves as activists, fighting for equity, are now showing that rhetoric disappears when someone offers them more money. She's calling out the hypocrisy of players who were vocal about WNBA issues suddenly going silent because Project B or Unrivaled is cutting bigger checks.
Interest comes up. But I have to, I mean, like, I'll speak from my own
conflict of interest. Is she bruh? Sue Bird does not want to be the one to like throw these players under the bus, but she clearly understands and knows this is a conflict of interest, dog. She knows this.
Perspective, my own opinion. I'm not obviously speaking for, in this case, it would be NECA, AT, Stewie, or Fee.
Yeah.
But I just think when the WNBA is healthy and successful, everything else, like, funnels from that. And I think that part of it sometimes gets lost in these conversations.
Russia, Turkey, China. WNBA players have been going overseas for decades. Questionable labor practices, authoritarian governments, zero media coverage. Why? Because the money was better. Sue Bird's right. Nobody criticized players for that. Everyone understood it was a necessity. So why is Project B or Unrivaled different? Because those leagues weren't competing with the WNBA. They weren't happening during the season. They weren't trying to replace the WNBA. A player going to Russia didn't threaten the WNBA's existence. But if Unrivaled or Project B gets successful enough, pulls players away, competes for TV deals and sponsorships, then you've got a real problem. And that's before we even get to the activism angle. When Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier talk about Unrivaled, they frame it as giving players what they deserve, creating equity. Those are social justice talking points. But the second you start a competing league while leading the existing league, you're not fighting for equity anymore. You're fighting for your own business interests. Nothing wrong with that, but call it what it is.
Money talks and people follow the money, absolutely. But the WNBA, even though it's lacked, and I'm the first to tell you, it's lacked in salary for a lot of years.
Yeah.
It hasn't lacked in some other things.
She's trying so hard not to say it directly. When people talk about what players will do, they forget playing in America matters to them when it comes to the WNBA. That's the most diplomatic way to say it. These other leagues don't offer what the WNBA does. Players who jump ship are making a short-term financial decision that could hurt their long-term brand. And she's probably right, for most players. If you're not Breanna Stewart or Nafisa Collier, if you don't own equity in these leagues, you're gambling. You're betting Project B or Unrivaled will be stable, deliver on their promises, and provide the exposure you need. That's not guaranteed. The WNBA, for all its problems, is stable, backed by the NBA. It's not going anywhere. But here's what Sue Bird can't say out loud. For the players who do have equity, who are founders and owners, this is a good idea. A completely different calculation. Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier aren't just getting salaries from Unrivaled. They own the league. If it succeeds, they could make generational wealth. That's worth the risk. Worth potentially damaging the WNBA. That's why having them as union leaders creates such an impossible conflict.
I know you asked about the negotiations, but just to kind of take it wherever I'm going, I think what sometimes gets lost in this conversation when people talk about, what's this player going to do? Or what would that player do? What would you do? What's your number to go to this place? Or why would you play here? What gets lost when it comes to the WNBA is playing in America.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what happened in those EuroLeague games. She just said it. That's the entire point. You can be the best in the world, have the greatest performances. But if nobody's watching, if there's no media coverage, if American sponsors don't care, it doesn't translate to anything beyond your salary for that game. That's the WNBA's actual value proposition, and it's something they've never explained properly. It's not just the salary, it's the platform. Caitlin Clark makes more from her Nike deal than she'll make in WNBA salary for 5 years. Angel Reese's endorsements are worth millions. That doesn't happen if they're playing in Europe. Even if European leagues paid better, it happens because they're playing in the WNBA in American markets, on American television, where American brands can activate. But here's the problem. It only works if the WNBA stays the only elite women's basketball league in America. The moment Unrivaled or Project B can offer comparable exposure plus better salaries, that value proposition collapses, and that's what's happening now. These leagues are betting they can provide enough exposure and enough sponsor interest to make up for not being the WNBA. And they're backed by serious money that believes that bet will pay off.
To capitalize on endorsements, which now is a real player for these.
That line right there, in ESPN for what you did in EuroLeague, that's everything. The awards, the recognition, the legacy, it all comes from the WNBA. Sue Bird's right. But what she's dancing around is the question players are asking, does that matter if you're not getting paid fairly? Reality check. Caitlin Clark is going to be famous no matter where she plays. If she skipped the WNBA and only played in Unrivaled, would Nike drop her? Would State Farm cancel her endorsements? Probably not, because her value comes from WHO she is, not which league she plays in. Now, would that be true for the 50th best player in the WNBA? No. For most players, the WNBA platform is essential, but for the superstars, the players who transcend the league, the calculation is different. That's what makes this so dangerous for the WNBA. They've always relied on the fact that players had no alternative, play in the WNBA, or go overseas where nobody watches. But now there are alternatives in America, with American media coverage backed by investors willing to pay more. The WNBA's leverage is disappearing at the worst possible time.
Yeah. But being able to capitalize on endorsements, a lot of these contracts, now it's not that you can't create a new type of contract, but I know my shoe deal, I had to play in the WNBA to get my money. So a lot of the ecosystem that we live in as Americans playing in the WNBA revolves around playing in America. Yeah. And so I just think that
Nnachika Ogwumike signing with Project B, while president of the Players Association, is the perfect symbol of this crisis. She's supposed to be negotiating for better WNBA contracts, but she just signed with a competing league. What message does that send? I don't believe the WNBA is going to pay me what I'm worth, so I'm going somewhere that will. If the union president doesn't believe in the WNBA's future, why should anyone else? Sue Bird sees all of that. You can tell from how carefully she's choosing her words, trying to defend the WNBA's value while acknowledging that players follow the money. She knows this is a crisis. She knows the conflict of interest is real. She knows having union leadership running rival leagues is an impossible situation. But she also knows directly criticizing Breanna Stewart and Napheesa Collier would create a firestorm. So instead, she's letting the facts speak for themselves.
Of the universe, for sure. And another thing that gets lost, like if there's not a league, if we be dramatic.
Whatever is paying you the most is what you're going to talk nice about. That's the key line. These players aren't loyal to the WNBA or growing women's basketball. They're loyal to whoever cuts the biggest check. Nothing wrong with that. Players should maximize their earnings, but you can't have it both ways. You can't position yourself as a leader fighting for the collective good of WNBA players, while building a business that benefits from the WNBA's limitations. The CBA negotiations are going to be fascinating. How does Nneka Ogwumike negotiate for better WNBA salaries when she's already shown she doesn't think those salaries will be good enough? How do Breanna Stewart and Napheesa Collier advocate for WNBA players when they need the WNBA to be limited enough to make Unrivaled attractive? The conflicts are baked in now. There's no clean way to resolve them. And here's what nobody's talking about. What if the WNBA calls their bluff? What if the league says, you want to run competing leagues? Fine, but you can't be union leadership while doing it. Would Stewart and Collier step down from the Players Association? Would Ogwumike give up her presidency? Or would they choose their ownership stakes over their union roles? My guess? They choose the ownership. Because Sue Bird already told us, players go where the money is. For Stewart and Collier, the real money isn't in WNBA salaries, or even Unrivaled player contracts. It's in owning a successful league. If Unrivaled works, if it becomes a legitimate competitor, they could sell their stakes for tens of millions of dollars.
Americans care about what's happening overseas. I don't know. That would be a...
Not really.
I guess...
Not really.
Hopefully we never have to find out, but no. The other thing that I don't think gets talked about enough when it comes to people trying to guess what players would do. First of all, it's such an individual decision based on your finances, based on your life, where you are, how old you are, all the things. But second of all is, to piggyback off the building a brand, you want to play in the best league against the best players and feel valued. And speaking for somebody that played in Russia, yeah, we played in EuroLeague and there was stakes.
That's what this is really about. When Sue Bird says these players have no loyalty, when she points out they'll talk nice about whoever pays the most, when she calls unrivaled and Project B rival leagues, she's not speculating. She's describing exactly what's happening. The WNBA is facing a huge threat. And that threat is being led by its own union leadership. It's the most bizarre conflict of interest in sports. And somehow everyone's just pretending it's normal. The question is, what are WNBA players who aren't founders, who don't have equity, who are just trying to get fair contracts? What are they supposed to think about all this? Do they trust union leadership that's literally running competing businesses? Do they believe the Players Association is fighting for the best possible WNBA deal when the association's president just signed with Project B? This is the conversation the WNBA needs to have publicly, but nobody wants to be the one to start it, except Sue Bird apparently, who just put it all out there in the most diplomatic way possible, while still making her point clear. Now we'll see if anyone has the courage to address it, or if everyone just keeps pretending there's no conflict while the league's future hangs in the balance. So what do you think? Is Sue Bird right to call this out? Should Nneka Ogwumike step down as Players Association president? Can Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier really serve players' interests while running a competing league? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let me know if you think the WNBA is handling this correctly.
There was also a lot of really bad Russian league games that we had to play in. And it can be mind-numbing. And nobody knows. Some of those EuroLeague games, by the way, are some of the best ever. I say this often.
Yeah.
That nobody got to see. And, you know, to like make the point in a really dumb way, I don't know that you win an ESPY for what you did in EuroLeague.
Exactly. We not like people like EuroLeague. That's cool. That's cool. If Caitlyn watching, people gonna be tapped in. But outside of that, like, yeah, people ain't gonna be. Come on, man. Stop playing games. Stop playing games, man. Sue Bird called a few things out here, man. Get down in the comments. Let me know what y'all think about this.
You don't win any